We're bored. We're all bored now. But has it ever occurred to you, Wally, that the process that creates this boredom that we see in the world now may very well be a self-perpetuating, unconscious form of brainwashing created by a world totalitarian government based on money, and that all of this is much more dangerous than one thinks, and it's not just a question of individual survival, Wally, but that somebody who's bored is asleep, and somebody who's asleep will not say no? See, I keep meeting these people. I mean, just a few days ago, I met this man whom I greatly admire, and he told me that he no longer watches television, he doesn't read newspapers, and he doesn't read magazines. He's completely cut them out of his life because he really does feel that we're living in some kind of Orwellian nightmare now, and that everything that you hear now contributes to turning you into a robot. He said to me, "Where are you from?" And I said, "New York." He said, "New York, yes, that's a very interesting place. Do you know a lot of New Yorkers who keep talking about the fact that they want to leave but never do?" And I said, "Oh, yes." And he said, "Why do you think they don't leave?" He said, "I think that New York is the new model where the camp has been built by the inmates themselves, and the inmates are the guards, and they have this pride in this thing they've built. They've built their own prison, and so they exist in a state of schizophrenia where they are both guards and prisoners, and as a result, they no longer have the capacity to leave the prison they've made or to even see it as a prison." And he said, "Escape before it's too late." See, actually, for 2 or 3 years now, I've had this very unpleasant feeling that we really should get out. Of course, the problem is where to go, because it seems quite obvious that the whole world is going in the same direction. From now on, there'll simply be all these robots walking around, feeling nothing, thinking nothing. And there'll be nobody left almost to remind them that there once was a species called a human being, with feelings and thoughts, and that history and memory are right now being erased, and soon nobody will really remember that life existed on the planet.
Armor of Truth.
In the age of technocracy, scientism, and pop atheism,
Faith is resistance.
Nietzsche, of course, announced the death of God and called for the birth of the Übermensch, the Superman, who would take humanity to new heights and to create a new world order.
Find us at the Brad from Carolina YouTube channel and log on armoroftruth.net.
Greetings, my friends. Welcome to the show. There it is, folks. We're going down the cultural highway today. Thank you for joining us. First of all, let's start out with this poll question. Is Britney Spears a good role model for today's culture? And I hope if you respond, you'll leave us a comment and explain what you mean by your comment. So far, Britney's not getting much love here, or at least as the question, is she a role model? Out of over about 110 of you, so far, 83% are saying no. All Hollywood is evil, and we're using Hollywood in the general sense to mean the mainstream entertainment industry. Only 3%, which means in this case probably about about 4 people, 3 3/4 people, 3 1/10 of a person, I guess, have said that yes, she's a role model. She is a fighter, and of course, about 15 of you have said, Britney who? All right, let's see what's going on in these comments here. What do people have to say about this? Before I do that, let me make sure you guys can get to this poll question. I'm going to drop it into the live chat, and we'll pin it to the top of the live chat so you can participate in this. Let me make sure. I'll just say, is Britney a role model? There you go. Now, this poll question is in the live chat, and it is also going to be pinned to the top of the live chat so you guys can participate, please go over there, vote in the poll, and leave us a comment over there. Let's see what folks have to say so far. Emma Peel says, speaking of Britney, says she's an example of selling your children for riches. Speaking of her, Britney's parents, I assume there. She says, I hope all her sins and misery are placed onto her parents and the creeps who used and use her. If you watch and listen to her, she's broken. There's no whole person. I relate to her experience being sold as a child, says Emma Peel. Thanks for sharing that with us, and that's unfortunate to hear for sure. Zachary Please says she's only an example of what happens when you enter the arena of L.A. Does nothing but destroy people. Pray for them. I didn't know who she was and just looked her up, so I don't know if she's still lost in the biz. Well, she says from time to time that she's a Christian. We'll look at that too today. I'll take you through the outline of our show in just a bit. YKA Free says Hollywood isn't completely evil because relatively good people are in it and flawed people get used and corrupted. But no, the totality of Britney's influences don't make for a good role model. There are worse examples than her, to be honest, though. All right, Eddie Vasquez says, I'm on the fence about this one. She's basically a slave, from what I understand. There's Cameron Hildebrand says, it does seem she has suffered abuse and trauma. Although her experience elicits sympathy, it does not make her a good role model. I think the recent headlines are meant to revive the idol worship of her. Interesting things. Cameron. The one and only says, honestly, I feel sorry for her because I've seen many video clips where she desperately wants to get out. The problem is she has kids and family members. Once you are in the elite club, there is no easy way out. And if there is a way out, at what cost? With the blood and rituals she got in, with the blood and rituals she might get out. Interesting. Good comment. Thanks. Vigilant Viewer says, we cannot even be sure this is anything more than garbage. With everything else going on, why is this even in the news other than to create more SJWs? Lil Drago is in the house. Good to see you. Says she's just there to be an idol and has sold her soul probably. I'm pretty sure, like all of them do. Ghoulish Barks with Avatar of the Day. Right there, kitty cat. Says both are true. She's a fighter due to being forced into stardom at a young age with no choice. But what happened to her also proves Hollywood is evil due to what her father did to her solely for money and fame. All right. Satan Slayer says, I know who she is, but I don't pay attention to the newest trending topics as they all seem contrived to public perception and narrative. Jessica says, Jesus Christ is King. Hallelujah. Amen. There's a comment. There's a good one. Crystal Goins says, no, she's not a good role model in my opinion. I didn't feel any answers fit my thoughts, so I didn't vote this time. I know who she is. I don't think she's a good role model, but I don't know if all Hollywood is evil. It probably is all evil, but I like to think there's still some good people who aren't corrupt there. Big Dog says she definitely isn't a good role model. She seems to be a victim of the system, MK Ultra and all. Christopher Cunningham says no. In fact, she might be MK Ultra controlled. When you see videos of when she had a mental breakdown, you can tell something is wrong. 20 Below simply says, hit me, baby, one more time. All right, so if you'd like to get your comment in there, just go follow the link. It's in the live chat, pinned to the top of the live chat. We'll be checking back in with this poll question periodically throughout the show. Let's refresh and see what we got. Ooh, we had a big jump. We'll check and see. We've got a few more here. So 120 votes are in now. 84% saying no, she is not a role model. All Hollywood is evil. But the Britney Who went down a point. Let's see who else. Any new comments in the past couple minutes? Yeah, there's Michael Tiza. Says she is too outdated for today. She's a real girl who likes real boys, right? That doesn't fit today, does it? Michael Quainton says there's probably some Hollywood that aren't evil. All right, there's a couple new ones. All right, you can find the link to the poll question in the live chat. Otherwise, you can just navigate to the Brad from Carolina YouTube channel, go to the community tab, You do have to be logged in to do that, but you can find the poll question over there. Greetings, my friends. Here we are. Let me show you something cool. How about that? You need one of these. There's a link in the description if you'd like to support us by picking up some of these items we've put together. Hopefully have more of these available for you soon at different price levels. It's just another way to help support what we're doing here. And thank you very much for joining us and being with us today. Good group. Let's see, Pagano, Lee Charles, On Fire Foley, Dilly Gill. The lovely Summer will be in the chat with you guys today. If you have any specific questions, you can address them right there to Summer in the live chat, and we'll try to deal with those closer to the end of the stream. Big Dave is with us. Of course, Eddie Vasquez, Shelley in South Oz, Gregory Curtis, Stacy Schreiner. There's Stacy. Thanks for that card a little while back. We appreciate it very much. Ms. O is in the chat with us. She's got the wrench. She'll use it, folks. Watch your step. Aileen Hogg is also there. Of course, Michael Quaintance. And let's get over here and look at what we've got for you today. This is going to be a trip, obviously, into some different worldviews. The outline for how we're going to deal with this today is, first of all, we're going to deal with the news about this issue, the conservatorship. We're going to learn what that is. What is this story actually about? I mean, for those of you who think that there's anything real behind it at all, we'll look at it that way. We'll just give them the benefit of the doubt and look at the story for what it is. All right? Real or not, we'll look at the story for what it is and comment on that. And then, as we get into the second segment later on in the show, we're going to check out what Britney Spears has said about her own faith. In other words, here's someone who is obviously in crisis and seems like she's been in a crisis for years and years and years. Is that a result of worldview? Maybe, maybe not. But how is it being dealt with? All right, so she makes some claims about worldview. We'll look at that later on. Britney Spears comments on her faith, claiming to be a Christian, but also practicing Kabbalah. And what is that? What is Kabbalah? We'll talk about that. And then, of course, we'll bring it back around to what are some Christian worldview essentials. In other words, if you're a Christian, what is your worldview? All right, so thanks for being here, folks. Let's jump over here and get started. I'll get my outline ready. First of all, we've got there's a tweet from Justin Timberlake himself. Let's see what this is. So, this is a couple weeks ago, or last week, I guess. Justin Timberlake responding, of course, to what happened recently, where Britney Spears came out and she was giving a testimony to a judge, and this piece was leaked. We're going to play clips from that for you today, from her testimony before a judge regarding her conservatorship. We'll define that term for you. Essentially, it just means people have control of her life. And Justin Timberlake here has put out some tweets here in defense of her. Let me tell you this before we get going. What this is about, think about this. We're gonna look at this at this story for what it is, as it has been presented to us. But all the while, as we think about this, I want you to think about, do you have a handler? Do we all have a handler? Are we in a conservatorship? Is a global conservatorship being built around us right now? You'll see some similarities. All right? So keep that in mind and I won't let you forget it as we go. So Justin Timberlake responded this way. He says, after what we saw today regarding the news that she had challenged her conservatorship and given his testimony to a judge, he says, we should all be supporting Britney at this time. Regardless of our past, good and bad, well, we always have to preface it, don't we? Regardless of how messed up you may be, and no matter how long ago it was, he had to get all that in there. He says, what's happening to her is just not right. No woman should ever be restricted from making decisions about her own body. Very interesting comments, isn't it? So Justin Timberlake has made some value judgments right off the bat, saying that it's not right what's happening to her. Well, I would agree with him, but why is it not right? That's the question we have to ask. Why is it not right? What is your ultimate standard for truth? What is good and what is evil? How do you know what is right and not right? Another tweet there at the bottom says, no one should ever be held against their will or ever have to ask permission to access everything they've worked so hard for. What does that remind you of? You know, we're on YouTube today. I can't speak as freely as I might want to. But what does this sound like? No one should ever be held against their will or ever have to ask permission to access everything they've worked so hard for. Interesting, right? All right, so let's check in here with, first of all, we've got Rolling Stone is going to help us out with the secular view here of what's going on. So what's going on and what's next? We're going to talk about this. I'm going to define this term conservatorship for you in just a moment, but a little more detail so we can understand what's going on and what is this person dealing with. This is so there. Rolling Stone has given us a timeline. There you go. That's what it looks like. So there's a contentious fight over Britney Spears' conservatorship, and it entered a new phase recently after her scathing testimony in front of Los Angeles probate judge Brenda Penny. This was in June, during which the pop star offered a harrowing account of the last 13 years of her life. She's been in this situation as an adult. Since 2008, her life has been controlled by a conservatorship led by her once estranged father, Jamie Spears. The conservatorship has been credited by some with helping set right her career after a tumultuous 2008 ended with a 5150, it's a legal term, a 5150 involuntary psychiatric hold. Since then, Spears has put out hit albums, toured the world, and starred in a Las Vegas residency. But in her testimony, Spears claimed that her father and others enlisted. Looks like Rolling Stone is trying to add some extra videos here that we don't need. There we go. Spears' testimony seemed to confirm all the suspicions about the nature of her conservatorship raised by the pop star's supporters in the Free Britney movement. So this goes back February the 5th, Framing Britney Spears, a presentation premiered on Hulu, the streaming service directed by Samantha Stark. The film offered one of the most comprehensive accounts of Spears' career and her conservatorship. It examined her fraught relationship with the media, how that played into Spears' erratic 2008, where she got that involuntary psychiatric hold, and how her somewhat estranged father, Jamie Spears, re-entered the picture that year, stepped right up to serve as her guardian, essentially. The film also profiled the rise of the Free Britney movement and put forth the argument that those who have been overseeing Spears' career for the past 13 years may not have always had her best interest at heart. There's what the freebritney.army page looks like. So that's February. Then February 9th, following this documentary's premiere, Spears' longtime boyfriend Sam Asghari criticizes Britney's father on Instagram, calling him a total, one of those. He also issues a statement to people saying, "I've always wanted nothing but the best for my better half," he says. They're not married. Anyway, I don't think she's allowed to get married, in fact. But he says, "And will continue to support her, following her dreams and creating the future she wants and deserves." February 11th, probate judge overrules Jamie Spears, her father. When you say Jamie Spears, it's confusing somebody. Jamie Spears is her father. A judge overturned his objection to an order that previously assigned the financial institution her money. Assigned her money over to a trust. He challenged it, and at her request, At Britney's request, this financial institution was appointed as a co-conservator. She's been fighting this, in other words. She's been trying to fight this legally. Spears' lawyer said, "It's no secret that my client does not want her father as a conservator, but we recognize that removal is a separate issue." So here's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a family, apparently, and a father who seems to have, anyway, if this is real, to have pimped out his daughter and continues in this way. She's an adult. She was an adult when they did this to her. So February 25th through March 3rd, it says his lawyer, her father's lawyer, is defending, because obviously, the conservatorship, and went on a press junket, CNN, NBC, Good Morning America, saying, "I understand that every story wants to have a villain, but people have it so wrong here. Her father's the good guy. This is a story about a fiercely loyal, loving, and dedicated father who rescued his daughter from a life-threatening situation 13 years ago, apparently, allegedly. People were harming her, and they were exploiting her." And he jumped in also. March 31st of this year, Britney issues her first public statement about the Framing Britney Spears documentary on Instagram, writing, "I didn't watch the documentary, but from what I did see of it," didn't watch it, but from what I did see of it, anyway, "I was embarrassed by the light they put me in. I cried for 2 weeks, and well, I still cry sometimes." Just imagine what it would be like if everything you did was so heavily scrutinized by people who have access to mainstream media, who can really paint any image of you they want. You know, it happens out here on YouTube as well, obviously. Very tiny roles, but there are people who will take up personal crusades against you. April 27th this year, at a court hearing, Spears' attorney requests that the singer be allowed to speak about this conservatorship. That's another part of the story. She was never allowed to even talk about this publicly. And so then, now we get to June of this year, where the New York Times published a report based on previously sealed court documents that reveal Spears had been pushing back against them against the conservatorship more frequently and for longer than anyone had actually known. She's probably pushing back on this almost immediately. The documents also revealed Spears had been questioning her father's fitness to serve as her conservator far earlier than previously reported. And so then, that was the 22nd. Then on the 23rd, she, Britney Spears, delivered a scathing rebuke of her conservatorship in court, along with her claims of forced labor and abuse. Spears revealed that she did not know she could petition the court to end her conservatorship. So she's... it seems like what we're dealing with here is a person, Britney Spears, a person who, sort of like Michael Jackson, just is still operating as a child on some level. It's like, but you're in an adult body, you're in an adult world, you're being used and abused as an adult, but still with a childlike mentality. She had no control over her life and didn't know how to get it. She says, "All I want is to own my money and for this to end, and for my boyfriend to be able to drive me around in his car. And honestly, I want to be able to sue my family," she said. All right. Then June 30th, the father responds. Obviously, the war has begun. July 1st, a judge denies Spears' request to remove her father from this position of control in her life. July 3rd, the New Yorker publishes more details about this, which I have that article here for you, and I'll tell you where to find that. The New Yorker publishes more details about the conservatorship battle, including that Spears had shown some disapproval of her father's role as far back as the year he took control. The piece also states that Spears called 911 the night before she gave this testimony I assume that was the 23rd, so she called 911 the day before that, recently. The piece also states that Spears called to report herself as a victim of conservatorship abuse. Now, that's weird. that you would call 911 for that. So once again, we're dealing. It seems like we're dealing with someone who just doesn't actually know how the real world works. Now, she's obviously in a real world. Let's don't make light of that. She is in the real world, but it's not a world that any of us are familiar with at all. She is not familiar with how most of us operate daily, from day to day, just making decisions. Now, she has a tremendous amount of responsibility, that's for sure, but it's so different. July 6th. That's today. Spears' longtime manager Larry Rudolph resigned, citing the singer's apparent desire to retire herself. Rudolph briefly addressed the drama surrounding the conservatorship and distanced himself from it, saying, "I've never been a part of this conservatorship, nor its operations, so I'm not privy to many details." Still, in her June 23rd testimony, she, Britney Spears, highlighted some of the professional pressures placed on her by her managers, including that she do a 2018 tour. So, according to Rolling Stone here, what's next? It says if Rudolph's resignation is any indication, others involved in the Spears conservatorship could be stepping down as soon as well. It's also possible that Spears may soon officially file a petition to terminate the conservatorship. So the next court date in the saga is currently set for July 14th, with NPR, of course, reporting that the hearings will focus on this trust that the trust's petition to remove itself as a planned conservatorship. Now, okay, there's Rolling Stone giving us the view from the mainstream from that, all right? And a conservatorship. So to help us understand, as we're thinking about worldview underneath all of this, and conservatorship, I want you to be thinking about, as we listen to this story, do you have a handler? Do we all have a handler? And over the past 18 months, things have changed in the world. What's happened to our freedom and our liberties? Are we, our citizens now, in this situation? So a conservatorship, let's see, we can just check it out on Wikipedia. It's a decent description. Under U.S. law, conservatorship is the appointment of a guardian or a protector by a judge to manage the financial affairs and or daily life of another person due to, check it out, old age or physical or mental limitations. Now, old age is easy to prove. Physical limitations are easy to prove. Mental limitations, a little tougher to prove. Perhaps, let's say, if you're, how could you be accused of having mental limitations? Are you a science denier, for example? You know, those people are considered crazy today. We have to be careful about this. But let's. A person under a conservatorship is a conservatee, a term that can refer to an adult. A person under guardianship is a ward, a term that can also refer to a minor child. And that's the argument, the subtext of all this is that we have all become wards of a global order, of the global state. Now, it might not be fully formed yet, but the skeleton is there. So this term, conservatorship, may also apply to corporations and organizations. So conservatorship applies to persons, not living, breathing human beings, but persons. Now, that's a whole other argument. That's a whole other conversation about what is a person. What is the legal entity known as a person? Well, it is a fiction. It is a legal fiction, but it has a purpose. But it can also be used for nefarious purposes as well. But you can't really take control of a flesh and blood human being. I mean, you can, but to take control of their person is to take control of all their let's just say their documents. That's a different. Let's not get too far down that rabbit hole. I'd love to sometime, but not today. The conservator, the one in charge, may be only maybe only of the estate or the financial affairs, but maybe also of the person, wherein the conservator takes charge of overseeing the daily activities such as health care or living arrangements of the conservatee or the ward or the one that's being guarded. A conservator of the person is more typically called a legal guardian. So you've heard this before. This seems kind of like how the when someone gets custody of a child, which is another conversation altogether. How did to give custody to some other person, that means that someone else had to have had custody. Who was it? I encourage you to read and learn a little bit about what your birth certificate actually is. Can't go down that path today. Anyway, so conservatorships are established either by court order with regard to individuals or via statutory or regulatory authority with regard to organizations such as businesses and entities. So obviously you can see this is a legal action. In other legal terms, a conservatorship may refer to the legal responsibilities over a person who is mentally disordered, including individuals who are psychotic, suicidal, demented, incapacitated, or in some other way unable to make legal, medical, or financial decisions on behalf of themselves. So someone who is helpless. Not an adult woman who, whether you think she has demons or not, she's an adult and seems to have the ability to make decisions. She stood before a court, stood before a judge and gave this testimony. And we'll check that out right now. So, all right, let's look at that a little bit. Let's look at some of the, got some clips here, some timestamps. We won't listen to the whole thing because the whole testimony is about 23 minutes long. So I've got some highlights here, or some lowlights. Start out here first, some commentary where she says she's not a slave.
Claiming that. When I said no to one dance move.
Okay, first of all, now all the sounds you're going to hear in the background, whoever posted this video, I believe it's here on Jack Frost's YouTube channel. Thanks to Jack Frost for putting this up, I guess. So, I don't know. There's just a lot of somebody should have turned their notifications off. So there's a lot of noise in the background. So bear with it, but you can hear pretty well.
Into rehearsals, it was as if I planted a huge bomb somewhere, and I said no. I don't want to do it this way. After that, my management and my dancers and my assistant of the new people that were supposed to do the new show all went into a room, shut the door, and didn't come out for at least 45 minutes. Ma'am, I'm not here to be anyone's slave. I can say no to a dance move. I was told by my, at the time, therapist, Dr. Benson, who died, that my manager called him in that moment and told him I wasn't cooperating or following the guidelines in rehearsals. And he also said I wasn't taking my medication, which is so dumb because I've had the same lady every morning for the past 8 years give me my same medication, and I'm nowhere near these stupid people.
Okay. Once again, what we're thinking about today, we're looking at this as an example. We all look at this and go, wow, I would hate to be in her position. Wow, I'm so glad I'm not in her shoes. Are you? Are you not? Are we barreling down the pathway or the highway to that? Are we already there? Do we already have people taking control of our bodies in some way? Do we see that? Let's really have to be careful out here today, at least on this platform. Let me remind you while we're here, tomorrow we're going to do the first live stream, uncensored, unedited, full on the website. I'll put that out. We'll put it out on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook to let you know with the link how to get there. Be doing it at the same time we do these streams at about 6 p.m. So we have that capability now to stream to our website. So we're going to try that out, and we're going to talk about some of not this issue, but some of the things that we need to talk about that we can't talk about here on the website tomorrow. I'll give you more information about that. later.
It made no sense at all. There was a week period where they were nice to me and they said, I don't want to do, and I told them I don't want to do the they were nice to me. They said, if I don't want to do the New Vegas show, I don't have to, because I was getting really nervous. I said, I can wait. It was like, they told me I could wait. It was like lifting literally 200 pounds off of me when they said I don't have to do in the show.
Okay, so this is about control. Essentially, mostly this is about control. Let's get to this next point here that's really interesting. Let's see here.
Nothing. Over the 2-week holiday, a lady came into my home for 4 hours a day, sat me down and did a psych test on me. It took forever.
Does that sound unusual today? That someone would come into your house and determine whether or not you're mentally fit? I encourage you to check out what's been going on in Canada recently, where the authorities, health and otherwise, going into homes and determining whether people who are dissenting from the common narrative of you know what, determining whether they're sane, mentally fit or not. And if deemed not, it could be hauled away. All right. So what's going on with her? Let's be careful that we don't sit back and say, wow, I'm glad that's not me. It's not happening in the same way. And, you know, most of us are not holding millions and don't have that kind of money and assets on the line. But all we have is our lives. And that is more valuable.
But I was told I had to then, after that I got off, I was told I had to then, after I got a phone call from my dad saying, after I did the psych test with this lady, basically saying I had failed the test or whatever.
So if someone comes into your house and evaluates you for being mentally fit or not, is it impossible that could happen to any of us at this point? Once again, the point is, what we're thinking about, the subtext of all that is, are we all in a growing global conservatorship?
I'm sorry, Brittany, you have to listen to your doctors. They are planning to send you to a small home in Beverly Hills to do a small rehab program.
All right, listen to that again.
After that, I got off, I was told I had to then, after I got a phone call from my dad saying, after I did the psych test with this lady, basically saying I had failed the test or whatever. I'm sorry, Brittany, you have to listen to your doctors. They are planning to send you to a small home in Beverly Hills to do a small rehab program that we're going to make up for you. You're going to pay $60,000 a month for this. I cried on the phone for an hour, and he loved every...
Okay, so she's talking about her dad there. So, you need to listen to... In other words, we're following the science. Sorry, I wish I could say more. Can't do it here. We're riding with a strike on this channel already, so... all right, so anyway, let's move up here too. She's going to make some comments about ethics. Britney Spears has some kind of an ethical foundation that she's working from. Let's hear what she says here.
When I said, no, ma'am, they should be in jail. They're cool tactics working for Miley Cyrus as she smokes on joints and stage at the VMAs. Nothing is ever done to this generation for doing wrong things. But my precious body, who's worked for my dad for the past fucking 13 years, trying to be so good and pretty, so perfect when he works me so hard, when I do everything I'm told in the state of California. They're cool tactics working for Miley Cyrus as she smokes on joints and stage at the VMAs. Nothing is ever done to this generation for doing wrong things. But
nothing is ever done to this generation for doing wrong things. So you're getting a perspective from someone who's been in this system all of her life. The point is, folks, what you see going on in this entertainment system with these people, it's not that different from the way today governments want to control populations. They want to put populations in the same position as you see this woman in. That's really the point we're making here underneath all of this. And so she makes a value judgment about Miley Cyrus smoking joints at the VMAs. Says, well, that's not right. And she says nothing ever happens to this generation for doing wrong things. Why is that? Why is that? Are we being debased? Or are we debasing ourselves? Does it matter which? So I thought that was an interesting point as she makes a value judgment there on the current generation. I guess we would consider Britney Spears. She's about 39 years old now, so she's in that generation. If that's your age, maybe you can relate to what she's saying there. But it's she's seeing what she's saying anyway. If we can take this as sincere anyway, she's reporting what many of us see up here, where she talks about wanting to be able to tell her story.
I'd like to sue my family, to be totally honest with you. I also would like to be able to share my story with the world and what they did to me, instead of it being a hush-hush secret to benefit all of them. I want to be able to be heard on what they did to me. By making me keep this in for so long is not good for my heart. I've been so angry and I cry every day. It concerns me. I'm told I'm not allowed to expose the people who did this to me. For my sanity, I need you, to the judge, to approve me, do an interview where I can be heard on what they did to me. And
okay, let's imagine something. For a second. What if you were in a situation where no matter what you said, no one listened? No one believed you. And the reason for it was because everyone around you was against you. Or at least maybe not everyone around you, but there's a small group of people who have control over you, over your life, and more over your body. Yeah, you have to agree with Timberlake in that respect, don't you? It's wrong.
And actually, I have the right to use my voice and take up for myself. My attorney says I can't.
But do you? Do you actually have that right today to speak up, speak for yourself, and to be heard? Do we still have that right? Does Britney actually have that right?
It's not good. I can't let the public know anything they did to me, and by not saying anything is saying it's okay. I don't know what I said here. It's not okay. I would actually.
Okay, so she gets a little flustered there, but let's move on ahead to this point where now some faith comes up.
Okay. I have been through, and the clever setup in Westlake is identical to Dr. Benson, who died, the one who illegally, yes, 100% abused me by the treatment he gave me.
All right, there she's speaking of a former therapist or psychiatrist who had, according to her, taken advantage of her, and is now dead. But let's listen to what she says here.
And to be totally honest with you, when he passed away, I got on my knees and thanked God. In other words.
Okay, well, there's one allusion to faith. There's another here in just a moment. We're going to get to that a little deeper in just a moment.
My team is pushing it with me again. I have trapped phobias being in small rooms because the trauma locking me up for 4 months in that place. Is not okay for them to send me, sorry, I'm going fast, to that small room like that twice a week with another new therapist I pay that I never even approved. I don't like it. I don't want to do that. And I haven't done anything wrong to deserve.
Okay, someone has total control of your life. Seems like you're in control. Another thing that's interesting here, you can hear that what happened to her voice. Her voice seemed to sort of regress there into a little more of a childlike tone, inflection there. All right, so let's move to 18. The 18-minute mark here. We're going to get another comment about faith. What is this?
There's 1,000 conservatorships that are abusive as well. I don't feel like I can live a full life. I don't owe them to go see a man I don't know and share him my problems. I don't even believe in therapy. I always think you take it to God.
Now, there's a claim. There's an interesting claim, making some commentary. Now, she'll say again, she's contradicting herself. Clearly, the poor young lady is, well, she's not that young. She's poor woman is has been through it. She's been traumatized. That's what she says right here. That's her comment. It's her quote. I'm traumatized. Let's listen to that one more.
There's 1,000 conservatorships that are abusive as well. I don't feel like I can live a full life. I don't owe them to go see a man I don't know and share him my problems. I don't even believe in therapy. I always think you take it to God. I want to end the conservatorship without being evaluated.
So her main point here, she wants to get out of this thing, and she wants to get out without them having someone evaluate her, because obviously if the stipulation is yes, you could get out of this conservatorship, but you have to show that you're mentally fit. How does she do that? When mental fitness and mental health is an arbitrary concept, it just depends on this person says yes and this one says it's not like having a broken leg. That leg is broken. We can all see it. It's arbitrary. Does that happen to us? Is this only happening to her? It's happening in a far more direct sense to her. Probably much more uncomfortable, but you don't have control over your body. You don't have control over your own medical decisions. It's not private anymore. All right, so there's another bit here in the Good Morning America piece here where we're talking about her social media. It's her mother. That's some comments from her mother and some family friends. These people who set up the conservatorship are now sort of backtracking and say, I thought we were helping at the time, and maybe they did. Maybe that's sincere. Who knows? Well, let's check out this clip.
Family sees all this control. According to that former friend, Britney's mother, Lynn, thought the conservatorship would only last a few months. When the New Yorker spoke to Lynn last month, she said she had mixed feelings about everything. I don't know what to think. It's a lot of pain, a lot of worry.
Are you a shark and I'm on your back?
The article also revealing how involved Britney is in what's posted on her social media. Spears admitting in court she has lied online, pretending to be happy when she's not. The New Yorker explaining she does write her captions, but she must submit them to a company that manages her accounts for approval.
There you go. Now we might say, oh, wow, that's terrible. She has to submit her text of her social media post through a company who decides whether or not it's okay to say that. I ask you once again today, is that really a lot different than, say, someone who wants to speak out against the official narrative going around the world today of the thing that can't be named here? So it's not that much different, is it?
A team member telling the New Yorker Britney is not supposed to.
We're talking about cancel culture, all right? Censorship and cancel culture. We're seeing it in her case in someone who is, she's directly targeted. And then look at all of us as a society. We're also in this situation. We're also in this position.
Discuss the conservatorship. Spears has earned millions while under conservators' control. But in 2012, the New Yorker reports, while wrapping up a $1,300 dinner, Spears told a friend she couldn't afford to pay her half of the bill. At the time, she was working as a judge on X Factor, a $15 million job. But Spears said she was limited to a $2,000 weekly allowance.
Okay, so let's think about mitigation strategies from the event that happened over the past year and a half, lockdowns. So let's just say we're going to take your business from you. We're going to shut this business down so that you can't go to work. Business owners and employees all shut down. But we're going to give you this stimulus check every now and then so that, so we can say we gave you something, right? So that our karma would be clean. Are we in a conservatorship?
No matter how much she earned.
And among the bills Britney Spears does have to pay, according to The New Yorker, is a $520,000 a year fee to her court-appointed attorney, Sam Ingham. And yet, again, according to The New Yorker, multiple sources tell them that they feel Ingham's loyalty is more so to the conservatorship and Jamie Spears than to Britney. Her next hearing is scheduled for July 14th, Eva.
All right, so the point here is power and control. People want it. Our hearts, our wicked hearts. Our hearts are in the natural state anyway. We want to step over people. Now, people will disagree with that. People say, no, people are basically just good. Yeah, sometimes we get things right. A blind squirrel will find a nut every now and then. But we're not basically good. Put a little pressure on a group of people, and you'll see that. The example I like to use is, put 4 toddlers in a sandbox and give them one toy. Very quickly, you'll see the human nature pop right out. We're not basically good, and this is an example of that. But does it sound familiar? Does it seem like us that we as a society are under some kind of a conservatorship? Are we being controlled like this? Are we headed there? Are we already there? Now that brings us around to, let's see, the conservatorship nightmare from this article from the New Yorker. This seems to be the piece that the definitive piece on this whole issue. And we're going to look at some, I'm not going to read the whole thing, obviously, but, you can find this at the New Yorker. It's there. So Britney Spears is 39 years old. Once again, as we move through this, the subtext here is, let's think about, are we also Britney Spears? Are we in a conservatorship? Are we being controlled and told what to do with our bodies and shamed if we don't comply or if we even challenge it? So she's 39 years old, spent the past 13 years living in this situation under conservatorship. Once again, to reiterate, it's a legal structure in which a person's personal, economic, and legal decision-making power is ceded to others. And once again, this is usually intended for people who cannot take care of themselves. It's usually intended to be something that's very short-term. This has been going on for 13 years. Her conservators, including her father, James Spears, they have controlled her spending, her communications, and her personal decisions now for the past 13 years. Now, some of the highlights from this article. Spears described how she had been isolated, medicated, financially exploited, and emotionally abused. Lockdown. So let's change that. The American people described how they had been isolated, medicated, financially exploited, and emotionally abused. She assigned harsh blame to the California legal system, which she said let it all happen. She added that she had tried to complain to the court before she had been ignored, which made her feel like I was dead. She said she felt like she didn't matter. And she added, "It concerns me. I've been told I'm not allowed to expose the people who even did this to me. So you're not allowed to speak out against that system that's oppressing you." But Jamie, her father, and Lynn, her mother, worked together to make Britney their second child, who was their second child, happy and a success. It says here that, anyway, that they claimed to work hard to make her happy and to make her a success. Is that how success comes? She was born a performer. She was a born performer. A scene stealer at dance recitals, starting at age 3. Her parents drove her to small dance competitions in Lafayette. She's from Louisiana, by the way. Then to larger ones in New Orleans. I don't know what happened to her accent. They borrowed money from friends to pay for gas to get her to auditions. Spears snagged an understudy role on Broadway and then a stint in the 90s version of the Mickey Mouse Club, where she was known as a Mouseketeer. When she was 16, she signed a 6-album deal with Jive Records, thanks to an enterprising entertainment lawyer named Larry Rudolph, who then became her manager. It seems like that's probably where this all went off the rails from the start. Now we move on down the line to where she was with Justin Timberlake, and that came apart. I guess this was around that time, right before she seemed to have her breakdown in 2008. She had just broken up with Justin Timberlake, a fellow teen pop icon. They were Mouseketeers together. Disney does it again. The breakup destabilized her, they said. People close to her said that she was rocked by this. Destabilized is the term they use. Her status as half of a golden couple had become an integral part of her identity. And after the split, even her sex life became a regular topic in the news. I want you to imagine that. Imagine, now, you might be saying, well, I would never let that happen. You can't control everything. She began going out more and hanging out with Lindsay Lohan and Paris Hilton, forming a holy trinity for tabloid culture at its early 2000s peak. This is, paparazzi following these people around. This is a hellish life. People would think, well, this is my dream. And for anybody who's out there who thinks, yeah, fame is, that's what I want. I need to get in that position. Take this as a cautionary tale. But after this, Spears, after the breakup and her being destabilized and hanging out with these characters in L.A., she distracted herself with work, a relentless grind of dance rehearsals, studio sessions, photo shoots, stadium performances, long nights on the tour bus, and hotel check-ins before dawn. The schedule was crazier and crazier. So, we're talking about somebody who's in their early mid-20s here, about mid-20s at this point, I guess. Yeah, you imagine? I know one thing. I had, at that age, knowing, I know who I am. Thank God I'm not the man I used to be. If I was in that position, I would have been off the rails too. Julianne Kay, a makeup artist who worked with Spears in the early years, said she would have little breakdowns. She was always crying, saying, I want to be normal. Spears blew off steam by partying. She smoked weed, used coke, took ecstasy with her dancers, and jumped into the Mediterranean Sea. But the machinery around her, that conservatorship, that group of people who had control, only grew bigger. When she toured, the crew took at least a dozen buses and filled entire hotel floors. Imagine you do pick up a lot of leeches along the way. In the spring of 2004, Britney Spears met a dancer named Kevin Federline at a nightclub, and they were married within 6 months. Spears initially did not secure a prenuptial agreement, so she was just acting on her heart here. Just not advisable, ever. That heart is wicked. Spears, no prenup, which prompted panic among her family and her handlers. A considerable fortune was at stake. One of the family friends said that her mother, Lynn, lost her mind. She said they weren't going to allow the wedding to be made legal, and the marriage contract wasn't signed until a month after the ceremony, when Federline finally agreed legally to limit his stake in Britney's estate, which he still benefits from today, I'm sure. But Spears seemed thrilled and commissioned a photo shoot in which she dressed up as a French maid and served drinks to Federline, who wore a trucker hat, cargo shorts, and flip-flops. Spears wanted a family, though, so we got this image, anyway, that she wanted to put out there. It's just, we're talking about a worldview under here as well. What kind of worldview causes one to fall into this line of behavior? I know what it is because I had that worldview. I've tried to live that worldview out before. It's not good. She said this. She said, I've had a career since I was 16. I've traveled around the world and back and even kissed Madonna. Okay, well, apparently that's some kind of accomplishment. She said this 2 months after getting married. She said, but the only thing I haven't done so far is experience the closest thing to God, and that's having a baby. She says, I can't wait. Well, there's something to agree with there. The closest thing to God, I guess. Yeah, we're created in the image of God. One of those ways that we're in God's images, we can participate in his creation. So she's got that part right. But we'll dive into this faith that she claims here in just a little bit. We'll look at that a little more closely and find out maybe why some of these things are the way they are for her. And in that case, also the world. Remember, we're holding up Britney Spears' experience next to our own collective experience and seeing what are the similarities. What are the similarities between what she's going through and what we're going through as a society? Are there any similarities? Are there any dissimilarities? She said, but everything got so crazy. First of all, she had a son. She's got 2 children. Her first son, Sean Preston, was born 10 months after the wedding. That would be interesting. Was born 10 months after the wedding. She says our life was running at 150,000 miles an hour. Federline said that in an Us Weekly article. He said, I'd walk into a club and get a table worth $15,000 a night with unlimited free drinking. But everything got so crazy. Okay, so there's the lifestyle we're looking at. It's interesting because these things are all looked at today, and even the way he's pointed out there. That's success. That's the good life when you can do that. Spears had been so sheltered that Paris Hilton had to show her how to use Google, according to a person who was there. Okay, her first son, Sean Preston, that was a little bit of background there. And second child, Jaden James, born in September 2006. 3 weeks after Jaden James was born, Federline took a private jet to Vegas to party with his friends. Spears filed for divorce in November, reportedly notifying Federline by text message. At a nightclub, the father, Kevin Federline, scrawled on a bathroom wall, it says, "Today I'm a free man. Forget a wife. Give me my kids." There's a certain worldview at work here. And if we're going to reform this culture, we need to understand where the problems are. But anyway, he requested full custody. Seems like both of them were out of control. Way out of their element. While the divorce was being adjudicated, he and Spears divided parental duties. Preston was a little more than a year old, and Spears was still nursing little Jaden when she wanted to be with him all the time and hated being at home without him, according to the housekeepers, possibly handlers who lived there. Around this time, she met Sam Lufty, a Hollywood operator with a knack for insinuating himself into the lives of turbulent female stars. And Spears had recently parted ways with Larry Rudolph, her longtime manager, when we spoke of earlier, and she began to entrust her professional and private affairs to this new character, Sam Lufty. He brokered relationships with the paparazzi and on occasion invited them right on into Britney Spears' home, telling her that this would make them seem less adversarial, that it was a good idea. Another leech. Spears had stopped sleeping. At this period in her life, she seems to have had another meltdown. And listen, you don't have to be mentally ill to break down under these circumstances. Spears had stopped sleeping and had begun behaving even more erratically. She said, quote, the days she didn't have the kids with her were hard, the housekeeper said. Interesting that you have to appeal to the housekeepers to get objective opinions, if we can expect they're objective at all. She said, but even then, she was never doing anything to hurt anyone. It was really hard for her, having the kids for just a few hours. When she had to say goodbye, it was very sad. I would carry one to the car, and she would take the other, and they would cry a lot, and she would cry too. I just ask you to consider, what about these 2 kids, Preston and Jaden? Does this cycle continue? She became so lonely that she would sometimes ask the housekeeper if she could bring her children over, the housekeeper to bring her children over to the house and stay the night. So this sounds a lot like, it does sound, now let's set aside the allegations of pedophilia with Michael Jackson, but this has that feel, doesn't it? Someone who didn't experience or didn't pass through childhood in a healthy way and is hanging on to it, or no rite of passage into adulthood necessarily, and that seems to break a person. The housekeeper said, she used to ask me if I was happy, and I used to say yes, and she would say, I just want to be happy. I want to have a family. I want my kids to stay with me every day. Now that moves against the common narrative today, doesn't it? Britney Spears says she wants to have a family. She wants to get married and have a family. Now later on, of course, when we get to the point where the alleged breakdown occurred, this is when her dad became one of those people in control of her life for money and power. Clearly, Jamie became a co-conservator, sharing duties with a lawyer named Andrew Wallet. There's no pun intended there. That's his name. Who was appointed by the court. On the petition to establish the arrangement, Jamie or someone working with him checked the box indicating that Spears had dementia, your own father, working against you to make you seem crazy. Once again, let's think about us as collectively here as a society. Those of us who might challenge whatever the official narrative is of the day, would they like to paint us as crazy, demented, mentally unstable? Threats to ourselves and others? Interesting. So the last performance that she was involved with anyway was a new Vegas residency called Domination. That was announced in 2018, but then her father had a medical emergency of some kind, of ruptured colon, I believe it was, and early in 2019 she canceled this whole residency. That's what she was talking about there in that testimony before the judge. She wanted to take a break. The following month, TMZ reported that Britney Spears had checked into a mental health facility and that Britney's grandma had received an anonymous voicemail saying, "Hi there." Caller said, "I cannot disclose who I am. I used to be a paralegal for an attorney that worked with Britney Spears' conservatorship. I am no longer with them." The caller alleged that Spears had been forced into the mental health facility months earlier against her will. COVID camps. Spears camps, her group, suggested that the voicemail came from an imposter, but after Spears resumed posting, her fans began combing through her social media posts for clues. A conspiratorial energy developed among her followers after a fan left a comment on Spears' TikTok account reading, "If you need help, wear yellow in your next video." And then Spears posted a video to Instagram wearing what she called "my favorite yellow shirt." The Instagram account grew more bizarre. She regularly posted multiple near identical photos of herself and also videos of herself dancing alone passionately in her house. Fans began reading these either as indications that she was unwell or that her team was trying to make her look unwell in order to justify this control. A member of her team claimed that aside from about 1% of her posts, those which might incur liability, Spears has pretty much total control. We just heard earlier that she has to submit her posts through a team. Would anyone be telling her to put that stuff up? He said, "It's detrimental to the brand. Trust me," he says, "if I had my way, that's not what she would be posting." But the point is that she's not the prisoner with no rights that some people in the Free Britney movement are trying to make her out to be. At the hearing in June that we just talked about, Spears described what was happening to her in 2018. She was forced by her managers to go on tour. She said she was threatened that she'd be sued if she refused. And after the tour, she was told to start rehearsing for this new ongoing. A residency in Vegas is when you do the same show a couple times a day in the same hotel or theater. After the tour, she was told to start rehearsing for domination, even though she wanted to take a break, so she had no control. That's the common thread here. Despite all of this and all of her pushing back, in December 2020, the conservatorship was extended once again until September of 2021. One of Jamie's lawyers said in an interview with Good Morning America, quote, "Britney knows that her daddy loves her." The Free Britney movement staged a 30-day campaign to call attention to Britney Spears' story. One of Spears' team said, "This is a radicalized group." Now, this is one of the people in control of her said. And they don't care about facts. It urged followers to support legislation in California that would strengthen the right to legal representation for conservatees. So there's a movement afoot out there to end this thing, which seems to be fairly common in Hollywood. Rose McGowan was on Fox News last week with Tucker Carlson talking about this very thing. Interesting, isn't it? I don't know what we make of that, being in the mainstream. But we're looking at this from a little different perspective. Now, we know we're lied to. All right, but let's look at the lie then. Let's break it down and see, what are they trying to tell us? At one point during the hearing, Spears said that the conservatorship had denied her reproductive rights. My body, my choice. Does that extend everywhere? Could you deny some specific medical intervention by saying my body, my choice? She says, "I was told right now in the conservatorship I'm not able to get married or have a baby." She said, "I have an IUD implanted. It's an intrauterine device. It's a birth control device." She says, "I have one of these in myself right now so I don't get pregnant. I wanted to take it out so I could start trying to have another baby, but the so-called team won't let me go to the doctor and have it taken out because they don't want me to have any more children." So your reproductive rights, I guess, being mitigated. If that was done on a mass level, what might that look like? How might you pull something like that off? If you could convince everyone to fall in line and line up, let's take a treatment. A lack of control over one's medical decisions is a fundamental feature of many conservatorships, and it had been clear for a long time that Spears' management played a guiding role in her personal life. Once again, a lack of control over one's medical decisions is a fundamental feature of many conservatorships. Are we? Is the world being put into a conservatorship today? In 2008, shortly after the conservatorship was established, Larry Rudolph told Rolling Stone that the next step in Spears' recovery was a new boyfriend because she's a relationship girl. Once again now, conservatorships can protect people who are elderly or who live with profound disabilities or catastrophic mental illness. But there is also a wide range of alternatives to conservatorship that are less strict than what Spears has experienced, such as conditional powers of attorney or formal shared control of finances. As conservatorship law is written, the court is required to determine that a conservatorship is and remains necessary in practice. Zoe Brennan Crone, a disability rights attorney for the American Civil Liberties Union, said, "This is absolutely not the case. What should be happening is that a judge at a reevaluation hearing would ask, what else have you tried? Why isn't anything else working? And if the conservator hasn't shown that they've tried less restrictive options, the conservatorship should be suspended." She says, "But I've never heard of a judge asking that in any situation." Lisa McCarley, an estate and probate lawyer in Los Angeles who has become something of a mascot, as she put it, for the Free Britney movement, describes the city's probate court system as plagued by cronyism. We're talking about L.A. The court system in California and I guess more specifically LA County, with judges appointing advocates from a small list of favored lawyers, cronyism, people with power serving one another. She said this has made a lot of money, millions of dollars, BSing people. The LA Times has reported that Ingham described a 90-minute meeting with Spears as at least 3 times longer than any session he had previously had with her. In one hearing, according to the Times, Getz, the judge, told him that she didn't recall an order specifically preventing Spears from getting married, but that he may not want to tell her that. Ingham replied, somehow that didn't come up in the conversation. So it goes on to say, our mistakes make us who we are. Now, this is one of the lawyers making a claim. It's just an interesting statement about the idea that Spears needs a conservatorship to function is to some degree reinforced. And in that respect, experts said her case is common. Now, there's a disability rights lawyer, Martinez, said that many guardianships can prove inescapable, which is why they are vulnerable to abuse. In extreme cases, he said, the strategy is to pay attention. Remember, we're thinking in 2 areas. We're thinking in Britney Spears, global society. Are there any similarities? This case, global. The strategy is to do this in a conservatorship, to isolate, medicate, and liquidate, sanitized, hypnotized, and neutralized. But they say the strategy is to isolate, medicate, and liquidate. It says you isolate them, get them alone, atomize them, don't let people meet in groups, medicate them to keep them quiet, and then liquidate the assets. So the formula that's being used on these Hollywood cash cows, these entertainers, these human beings, these people, these men and women who are going through this, looks like the same thing that's being done to the world as a whole right now. Isolate, medicate, and liquidate. Isolate them, medicate them to keep them quiet, and then take everything they have. What is equality in globalism, in Agenda 21, the agenda for the 21st century? Equality is not bringing everyone up to the same level. It's pushing everyone down to the same level. If a conservatee functions well under conservatorship, it can be framed as proof of the arrangement's necessity. But if a conservatee struggles under conservatorship, the same conclusion can be drawn. You see, there's no way out. There's no way out for the person who's in it. Here's the example of Britney Spears. It looks hopeless at times. There's no way out of this for her, because if she does well and is behaving well and feeling good, then it looks like the conservatorship works. But if she falls apart mentally, it also looks like the conservatorship is necessary. It's kind of the situation we're in as a group. And if a conservatee gets out and stumbles, conservatorship is ended and the person gets out and then they stumble into crisis or manipulation, a likelihood that is increased by time spent formerly disempowered. What is disempowerment? It's becoming, for example, in the U.S., you're becoming fat, happy, and lazy, and you forget that freedom's not free, that it didn't just happen. You don't have. The government doesn't give you your rights. You have to defend them. It says this too might reinforce the argument for their prior legal restraints. So, and then this comment. It says, our mistakes make us who we are and teach us who we can be, the lawyer said. Without bad choices, we can't be wholly human. And with the best of intentions, we say to people with disabilities, we'll keep you from ever making a mistake. In our world today, the governments are telling us, we'll keep you from ever getting sick. We promise. Just give us more. Give us more of your money. Give us more of your time, and give us more of your energy. Give us more of your freedoms. He added, should Britney get out, just watch. The first mistake she makes, fingers will wag, and people will say this would never have happened if she were under guardianship. And of course, the same thing happens in the media today with the current global situation. Lockdowns are ended, and then cases go up. Oh, look what happened. We have to shut it down again. Of course, we also know that many of the news stories that are written today are just false. But 10 years from now, as people look back in time at those news stories, they're going to think, wow, look at how awful that was. And in that way, they can always say in the future, this is a long game they're playing here. So in the future, it can always be used, these stories, these false stories we see today being put out about numbers and this and that and whatever. It can always be used in the future to look back and say, hey, see how dangerous it was when people had freedom? It caused people to get sick. It says there's this concept of dignity of risk, right? The right to take a risk, the right to decide for yourself what is risky, what is acceptable, what is an acceptable level of risk for me in this world. And this is relevant. As we see, this is one of the issues in a conservatorship. ACLU lawyer Brendan Crone, once again, said, most of us have a very wide range of bad choices we can make that society is okay with. But in a conservatorship, you're subject to the decision-making rubric of best interest. What is in the best interest of the community? The communitarianism, where individual rights are gone. And in this case with Spears, it's what's best for the group, what's best for the conservatorship, not her. And in a society, it's not best what's best for you individually. Your individual rights are no concern anymore. It goes on to say, and it's possible we'd all be better off if someone was making decisions for us like that. But those are not the values of the society we live in. Are they not? I would contend that the society we live in is fast being changed into a society that does believe we need someone making all of our decisions for. We need a centralized system. We need a conservatorship. In fact, we need a national conservatorship. A global conservatorship. Now, the question of control has surrounded Britney Spears from the start of her career. How much was she being manipulated by the powerful men who stood to profit from her image? To what extent was her existence manufactured by the demands of that system around her? Now let's change the proper noun. Britney Spears there too. Us. The question of control has surrounded us from the start of our lives or this current movement. How much were we being manipulated by the powerful men who stood to profit from us? To what extent was our existence manufactured by the demands of the system around us? And by existence, I don't mean flesh and blood. I mean that person we were talking about, this citizenship, this new idea of citizenship under this new administration that we're dealing with now. Okay, now let's move on into what does Britney believe? What has she been taught? Does she have any foundation to get herself out of this? Is there anything of faith or spirituality to help her out with this? We're going to see what she said about it. Once again, let me say thanks to everybody for joining us today. I'm glad to see we got a larger group with us today. It's tough. It's tough out here on this platform today. Things have been slim and slow lately, but thanks for joining us today, folks. Appreciate it very much. If you don't mind, just pop over there and hit that thumbs up in the underneath the video. Hit the thumbs up. Hey, hit the thumbs down for all I care. It's fine. I appreciate the thumbs down just as much, but it does. It helps us out quite a lot if you'll like the video, if you'll put a comment under there. It gets the video circulated a little more, you can help us out just by subscribing, hitting the thumbs up or the thumbs down, either way, leaving some comments, voting in the poll. Speaking of the poll question, let's take a look. By the way, if you're curious, the opening of the video today was from My Dinner with Andre. If you didn't hear that, when we're finished here, go back to the beginning of the video and listen to that dialogue from a movie called My Dinner with Andre from 1981. Let me give Max Egan credit on that. I saw that in the beginning of one of his latest videos, and I just thought that was too good to pass up. So I made a clipped it myself. All right, 135 people have weighed in so far on the question, is Britney Spears a good role model for today's culture? All right, 135 people, 84%, it's held about this way the whole time, no. 84% say no, all Hollywood is evil. Only 3% say yes, Britney Spears is a good role model, she's a fighter. And 13% of you, I guess that's probably about, at this point, it's probably about 16 or 17 people, maybe 18 people, have said, Britney who? Interesting. All right, so let's scroll through here and see which comments we haven't seen. There's Brian Brown. Brian Brown says she most definitely has the potential to become a role model. Interesting. And maybe this whole situation will make that happen. However, her handlers won't give her up very easily. It seems like she didn't have a choice to become a star, and thus we can't really judge her for actions or for participating in the satanic music system. It's a good point. Let's see what else we got. Any more comments? Joseph Powell, good to see you. JP says, I think she's a fighter. She had serious mental health problems at one time. Maybe this is her becoming the person she wants to be because she was never allowed to be herself or find herself. She might come out the victor in this and find Jesus or preach about God. Once she preaches about the Lord or God, she'll be back in the same old situation. You'll be ridiculed for that as well, but you'll be ridiculed for doing something righteous, which we know will happen. Pagano says, I'm sure people don't know how evil Hollywood is until you get in there. Making not all Hollywood evil, but I'm sure most of it is. All right, who else? That's all the new comments. If you want to throw a comment in there, we'll come back and check on this poll one more time before we finish up today. You want to vote in this, go to the community tab on this YouTube channel. I think you have to be logged in to do that, or you can find the link in the live chat. It's pinned to the top of the live chat. And just to make it easy, I'll drop the poll question in the live chat one more time. It's in the chat. It's posted to the top. It's pinned to the top of the chat. Okay. Now, our question now is, what about faith? Right? After all, this YouTube channel is an arm. It's an outreach part of Armor of Truth Ministry, which myself and my wife, Summer, who's right over there, operate here in Western North Carolina. If you'd like to help us out, we make Bibles available to people who request them. We at Bibles and Tracts, we call it a care package. It's a Bible and a set of starter set of tracts, about 3 versions of about 6 different tracts or 5 or 6 different tracts that we send out. Depends on what we have on hand, and you can receive one by sending us an email at armoroftruth@protonmail.com. And in the subject line, just say, I want a Bible. And then give us your mailing address. And we'll send you out a Bible. We send these out about every 15 days. Depends on how many requests are coming in. And so if you would like to receive a Bible, we got a care package. You can get an ESV. You can request an ESV, the print's a little bigger, or you can get a KJV. We still have a few of these left to give away. That's what we give away by default, and a set of tracts, starter package of tracts. We've given out quite a few of these this year, and it's a joy, it's a pleasure to be able to do it. We want to thank those who have made the Bibles available, cases of Bibles available to us to give out freely like this. It's a great blessing. We appreciate you very much. All right. You can send us a message, too. You want to help support us, you can send us support to Armor of Truth, P.O. Box 729, Hudson, North Carolina, 28638. Armor of Truth. That's Armor of Truth Ministry. P.O. Box 729, Hudson, North Carolina, 28638. You can send us a letter. Tell us that you appreciate what we're doing, or tell us that we're wrong. You can send in books, articles, research, whatever you might have that you might think we need to see. You can also send in support, and you can make, if you want to send a check-in, you can do that by making it out to Armor of Truth. It'll be fine. We can do it that way. All right. Now, thank you, Joseph Powell. Joseph Powell has super chatted. Let me see what that's about. He left us a message. Hopefully, if StreamYards is... there it is. I can't see it. It's hiding behind the... Thanks, though, Joseph Powell, for that support, for that super chat. I don't know why Streamlabs is not updating those things over here. It's been a problem. I don't know if Streamlabs isn't putting the links up in the chat anymore. We have to fix that. I apologize for that. It used to be a lot easier to get those things in there. I have no idea what's happening because we've been under attack. Maybe I don't think it's too dramatic to say we've been under attack. Feels like an attack. Taken down from the platform for a week here recently. Lovely Summer says that Streamlabs is working today. Well, that's good, but still it's not working over here on the screen, so we don't see Joseph Powell's super chat there. Thanks, brother. Appreciate that. Appreciate your support. Okay, now, what we want to do is find out what it is that Britney believes. What has she said about faith? Because Christianity Today, the magazine, and other Christian publications are saying that she's talking about her Christian faith, while at the same time she says she practices Kabbalah. Is it possible to do the two? Is it possible to do both? All right, so let's dig into that and see. This is for me anyway, this is where it gets more interesting. So let's go to Christianity Today and take a look. Christianity Today. Harry Farley says, Britney Spears' Christian faith, 5 little-known facts. Says Britney Spears' Christian faith. I'll ask you to keep that term in mind as we look at these 5 facts. Britney Spears has appeared on the front cover of V Magazine's 100th edition and opened up about her faith. At 34, this is 5 years ago, old pop star gave an interview to the American magazine where she said that she had my relationship with God and myself, and that's what matters to me, adding, I really don't care what most people think. Spears has enjoyed a diverse range of careers. From being a singer, songwriter, dancer, actor, author, and reality TV star, she has had an equally varied experience of religion over her lifetime. She has had an equally varied experience of religion over her lifetime. And here are 5 facts about Britney Spears' faith. Number 1, she was born and raised a Southern Baptist. Well, if you know anything about what's going on with the Southern Baptist Convention these days, I'm not sure if, I don't know, it's in turmoil at the moment. Falling under the strong arm of the social justice movement. Anyway, she said, I'm a Baptist. I grew up going to church, but I think you can have spiritual experiences without going to church. Well, certainly you can be a follower of Christ without going to church, but it's not recommended. I mean, we're commanded to come together, right, as a body. But she says here, I think you can have spiritual experiences. More about that later. Early on in her career, she was famous for saying she was a virgin and intended to remain chaste until marriage. This attitude gradually faded away as her performances became more provocative and she entered a long-term relationship with boy band singer Justin Timberlake. This is similar to Katy Perry's story. She actually started out as I guess maybe a faith-based performer. If you become popular, it's hard for that to last. Secondly, she became involved in Kabbalah. In 2004, Spears announced she had become involved with with Kabbalah. Madonna, a long-term friend of hers, is said to have introduced Spears to the practice, which involves an ancient form of studying Jewish texts. It's Jewish mysticism, essentially, is what it is. We'll talk more about what it is in just a moment. You'll have something to take away from this. What is Kabbalah? What are the teachings? Can you be a Christian and be involved in Kabbalah? At the time, Kabbalah was popular with a number of celebrities, including Mick Jagger, Paris Hilton, Naomi Campbell, and Demi Moore. Madonna even bought a multi-million-pound house in central London and converted it into a Kabbalah center. Britney says, I read the Kabbalah books, and I meditate on them. She says, they are all in Hebrew. I don't understand everything, but it's kind of okay that you don't. Okay. Kevin Federline, her then husband, isn't into it as intensely as I am, she said. So for some reason, I'm thirsting for it. Well, I'm sure she's thirsting for truth, as many people are. But I'm not going to find it there. Number 3, but at one point she appeared to renounce all forms of faith. You know, honestly, how could you expect this woman to have a solid background, spiritual background with the turmoil, utter turmoil in her life? Spears and her former husband Federline had their first child in September 2005, who they named Sean. Shortly before the birth of their second child a year later, Spears announced she no longer studied Kabbalah, explaining, "My baby is my religion." There you go. Now, you might expect that from someone who has had such a traumatic experience with her own father, her own family. You might expect a child to be idolized, and it's far too common today that a child is put in a position as a messiah. You know, my baby is my religion, right? You understand. She's probably trying to tell us that she loves her child and, you know, she's dedicated to her child. But this is a comment that we see a lot, and we see actions like this. We see people turning their children into idols an awful lot. Anyway, she says, however, there was speculation that the real reason for her withdrawal from Kabbalah was coercion over her money. She says she's tired of the way Kabbalah leaders kept hassling her for money, said a source. Actually, it was mostly her mother's decision. They were always asking Britney to tithe. It means to donate up. It literally means 10%. But there was a lot of pressure. And finally, her mom said, enough is enough. Number 4, she has dabbled with Hinduism. We're not surprised, are we? I'm not surprised. I understand I understand this. My own life has been, you know, all over the place. The pop star was spotted at a Hindu temple in Malibu, California, January 2006 with her 4-month-old son. She was reportedly getting a blessing for her son and was even photographed with a bindi, that's the red dot on the head, that women typically wear on their foreheads. The priest at the temple said she was seeking spiritual guidance, according to Cult News. It's possible that Spears took Hinduism quite seriously at one stage, reportedly attending a reincarnation sessions with a Hindu psychic. Things starting to make a little more sense about the chaos and turmoil in this poor woman's life. Some of the more entertaining speculation about this period in her life included her belief that she was a Shetland sheepdog in a former life, according to Digital Spy. A source reportedly said the star has flashbacks of being a dog working on a farm in Virginia. The insider continued, said she reckons her bossiness is a byproduct of her days pushing sheep around. Is that what they're teaching over at the Hindu temples these days? I guess so. Number 5, there are hints of a Jewish resurgence. While getting a tattoo of a pink and white cross on her lower lip, ouch, Spears was photographed with a large Star of David necklace, traditionally a symbol of the Jewish faith. She mentions Justin Bieber here. He's been identified as a Christian in the media recently, having spending time with the I think it's the Hillsong group. Carl Lentz even back before that debacle happened there, unfortunately. It says she even hung the necklace down her back when in the tattoo parlor, so photographers peering through the window could capture the image. Allegedly, the star was wearing it as a gesture of solidarity with her then boyfriend, Isaac Cohen, who is Jewish. So we're really, let's just be honest, we're really just talking about confusion. It's just a lot of confusion. Look, someone that's got, her life is chaos, let's be honest. And when it comes to spirituality, well, all her needs are met. She's suffered mentally for sure and being controlled. What she's clearly not had is a true change of heart. And we don't judge people because we can't see the heart, but we can look for fruits, the fruits of the Spirit. And the fruit of regeneration or salvation is repentance. And we need to see that before we make any judgments about whether people are in or out. But now, Kabbalah, right? That's big. That's big in Hollywood and entertainment. What is it? What is this? Kabbalah. Or Kabbalah. Okay, well, let's get into it. Now, it's huge in popular culture, of course, but why is that? Well, first of all, let's be clear. I'm going to share an article from carm.org, the Christian Apologetics Research Ministry here. And Matt Slick starts the article out by saying, popular culture has never been known for its wisdom. And I would agree. Fads come and go almost as frequently as the seasons. Most of the fleeting interests of popular culture are usually harmless, but as society moves further and further away from God, and when we say God, we mean the one true living creator God, the transcendent personal God who has created it all, time, space, and matter, who came into the world, came into time and space, in matter, in the man, Jesus of Nazareth, lived a life, was really here. It's objectively true. Taught a ministry. He fulfilled the Mosaic law in himself, brought a new covenant, and preached this message for about 3.5 years, gave his life as God in flesh. He wasn't born as we were, because he wasn't born under Adam, because he didn't have an earthly father. All of us who were born with an earthly father, which would be 100% of us, are born in sin. We're born under Adam. Jesus, not being born under Adam, had no sin nature and lived it out perfectly. Gave his life as a sacrifice, as the perfect sacrifice, because he had no sin, for the world, for you and for me, so that we who were born under sin would have a way to the Father, which means we would get mercy rather than justice, because we don't want God's justice. We don't want that, because we don't have any excuse. God's justice is going to be wrath. So what we want, what we need, is God's mercy, and that's what he came into the world to provide for us, and then gave his life of his own will, and then on the third day took it back up again in victory over sin and death and suffering. And because of that, we are Christians, followers of Jesus Christ, Christians in the purest sense of the term. So that's who Jesus is. That's what Christianity is. If anyone out there was concerned, that is the gospel. Jesus did that for you. He did that for me, to give us access to the Father, because in our natural state, with our sin nature, we can't be in the presence of God. But of course, as society moves further and further away from God, it moves closer to the lies of the enemy. Kabbalah is just such a lie. It teaches a mystical way of thinking about the universe, thinking about how to think about God and how to think about people. It teaches reincarnation, karma, inner divinity, and very subjective philosophies that have no way of being verified. So it's a lot like Hinduism. It is essentially ancient Jewish mysticism. But the fact that it's irrational hasn't stopped it from becoming extremely popular. Unfortunately, celebrities sometimes carry more influence than their intellectual competence and knowledge should allow them. Actors and singers sometimes adopt political and philosophical positions and use their influence to promote them and influence millions. They have the right to their opinions, of course, but they don't have a right to their own facts. And unfortunately, too many of them rebel against the truth of God's word and jump into the arms of deception and then bring their fans and the culture, the society along with them. Now, Madonna, of course, we just spoke about, is as famous in Israel for her devotion to the Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, as she is for her entertainment prowess in the world, or elsewhere in the world. Madonna was offered a spot on the prestigious Cannes Film Festival jury, but turned it down because she would have missed 2 Kabbalah meetings back in London. Reportedly, the spiritual mom, a follower of the semi-controversial Kabbalah Center, which practices a New Age spiritualism loosely based on Jewish mysticism, just bought a $2.9 million London mansion that she plans to convert into what is being described as a Kabbalah hotel and drop-in spiritual center for a fee, I'm sure. Of course, Britney Spears, at this time, when she was 23 years old, on her website said that after her friend Madonna introduced her to Kabbalah, it has helped me, quote, has helped me get rid of a lot of negative influences that were guiding me down the wrong path. And there came a point when not even my family had the answers I needed. Through Kabbalah, I was able to look within myself, clear all the negative energy, and turn my life around. Now, of course, Kabbalah does have its detractors. What kept the famously frugal Sir Mick Jagger and Jerry Hall away from Kabbalah, or come out of it? According to Hall, it was the money. We couldn't go through the door of miracles unless we gave them 10% of our money. So we stopped going. Money is often a motivator. In the development of philosophical systems, the Kabbalah Center in Los Angeles has been condemned by traditional Jewish Kabbalists as New Age bunk. So keep in mind, we're talking about 2 different things. This popular version of Kabbalah and the true ancient Jewish mysticism. I'm not saying that it's truth. I'm just saying that the original Jewish mysticism, they're not the same thing. This is a popularized, New Agey, Genuine scholars of Kabbalah, which is a respected branch of ancient Jewish mysticism, reject the Kabbalah Center as an opportunist offshoot of the faith with charismatic leaders who try to attract the rich and the vulnerable with the promise of health, wealth, and happiness. Wow, what does that sound like? It's the non-Christian form of, or it's the prosperity gospel for secular people. Jewish condemnation and common sense won't stop people from buying into the popularized mystical Kabbalah and purchasing its products. The Kabbalah Center in Los Angeles sells hundreds of thousands of books based on the spiritual system on a yearly basis. And that is a lot of money. They've produced a Kabbalah energy drink, a highly caffeinated, vitamin-rich, rabbi-blessed, I guess it was kosher, energy drink. For only $2, you get the power of Kabbalah water, incredible energy and a great taste, claims Darren Ezra, the product director of Kabbalah Enterprises. It's not a lot different than what Joel Osteen's doing, though, is it? Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher are said to be fans. This is, of course, an old article, but a source says Kutcher is in talks to promote KED, a refreshing elixir in the handy blue can. The Kabbalah Center even markets Kabbalah water, which is supposed to have Kabbalistic powers. However, a little research reveals some interesting facts. The investigation discovers the water actually comes from CJC bottling plant in Ontario, Canada, which was the subject of a public health investigation in 2002 into how its water was tested. It was ordered to improve manufacturing techniques, though there was no suggestion that it ever actually sold polluted water. Anyway, it's certainly... So here's the claim, right? If it's popular, it must be good. If it works for these celebrities, well, it must be good, right? A lot of you here might not say that, but there are people out there who see the world that way. The popularity of something has no bearing on whether or not it is good or whether or not it is true. Communism is very popular in some parts of the world, but it doesn't mean that it's beneficial. It doesn't mean that its claims are true. Pornography is also quite popular in the world, but extremely destructive. Drug abuse, very popular in the world, obviously bad. The problem with humanity is that comfortable and self-exalting philosophies promising spiritual and or financial success become popular because they are self-serving. These celebrities, many of us, most of us in our lives, most of the people here in the world are looking for a God to serve them, to serve my needs. You see, that's upside down from Christianity. And this is why truth is often ignored, because the truth is inconvenient. It's uncomfortable to people. Therefore, in our serve me culture, Kabbalah has taken root and is unfortunately increasing in popularity. So how long will this fad last? Who knows? Might be here to stay. It's very convenient. Will it disappear when these celebrities get bored with it? It appears to have drifted away a little bit. Will members of society finally figure out that subjective, mystical experiences, even the ones that wear a mask of Christianity, are no substitute for reality and truth? Probably not. This mindset is probably here to stay. But we can hope and we can pray that the truth of Christ's message and sacrifice will be accepted and Kabbalah would be rejected. To that end, you and me, brothers and sisters, here's something we can be praying about. Now, let's look at some of these teachings. Of course, as we said, Kabbalah is a mystical philosophy and theology within Judaism. Its key foundational teachings are these. Now, this is interesting. If you've never seen this before, let me see if I can. There we go. 10 teachings of Kabbalah. Here's number 1. God has 10 aspects through which creation was realized. 10 aspects. Number 2, the truths of Kabbalah were given to the angels first, then to Adam, then to Abraham, and finally to Moses. Remember, this is not necessarily what the celebrities are taking part in. This is the ancient mystical philosophy of Kabbalah, the philosophy and theology. Number 3, it teaches higher realms of consciousness. Right, so this does have a very distinct New Age flavor, doesn't it? Number 4, it teaches multiple universes, multiverses. This is why, for some reason, in the scientific community, specifically those people who are famous or well-known, Michio Kaku, for example, reference Kabbalism quite a bit. Might even themselves be Kabbalists. Now, there is some kind of a connection there to modern scientism and Kabbalah. So one of these is this idea of multiple universes. Number 5, the interconnectedness of all levels of consciousness, angels, demons, thoughts, and incarnations, etc. We're all one. Right? Is that true? Could that possibly be true? We're all one? Number 6, the fall of Adam and Eve was the result of a failure to make a rectification that would bring, quote, the universe to a new level of consciousness. So, maybe this is the origins of Gnosticism even. Number 7, it is possible to have a direct experience with God without the need of a mediator, such as Jesus. Of course, if we're talking about Orthodox Judaism, we're talking about people who reject the person and work of Jesus Christ, and sadly, in doing so, put themselves in eternal jeopardy. Clearly, the teachings and practices of Kabbalah cannot be reconciled with biblical Christianity. So, if someone out there, a celebrity, or someone in your neighborhood, or maybe even in your church, is claiming, hey, Kabbalah, it's cool, I like what they do, you can't be both. It's not possible. Here's another piece of Britney Spears talking about her religion, her faith. Says she goes back and forth between religions. In a bizarre Q&A on her Instagram a while back, addressing her legions of followers, Spears answered a number of questions. She says she has been asked by her fans. She says, you guys have been asking me more questions in the comments, and I'm here to answer all of them. She says, one of the questions fans have apparently been asking Britney is what her religion is. Of course, once again, she says, I grew up Baptist. She says, but I studied Kabbalah, so I go back and forth. But I do believe there is a God. Boy, if I had a nickel for every time I'd heard that. There was a time in the mid-2000s when Kabbalah, a branch of Jewish mysticism, was the religion du jour, the religion of the day among the celebrity elite. And everyone from Lindsay Lohan to Ashton Kutcher and Paris Hilton were spotted wearing the movement's signature red string bracelet. According to the Kabbalah Center's website, Kabbalah is an ancient spiritual wisdom that empowers us to improve our lives, discover our purpose, and achieve the lasting fulfillment we are meant to receive. Once again, it's popular because it's self-serving. In Kabbalah, you can create a God that serves you. You can have a divine butler. Sadly, it is obviously an error, quite false, and can be shown to be so. Both Spears and fellow pop icon Madonna were big proponents of Kabbalah back at this time. Spears wrote about ending her practice of Kabbalah on her website back in 2006. She wrote, I no longer study Kabbalah. My baby is my religion. Source told the publication at the time that she quit because she was tired of the way the Kabbalah leaders kept hassling her for money. Sounds a lot like Kenneth Copeland and the like. In an interview with V Magazine in 2016, Britney Spears spoke about her beliefs, saying, my relationship with God and myself, and that's what matters to me. She said, I really don't care what people think. Elsewhere in the star's Instagram, she spoke about how she went out partying once during her 4-year residency in Las Vegas. It was probably like 3 or 4 years ago, and it was a club called XS, and I danced with a friend, she said. She also revealed her favorite perfume is Tom Ford, and on down the line, these things are of no interest to us. Another comment here about the conservatorship. At the bottom, you can see her brother, Brian Spears, says her conservatorship has been good for the family. I guess if you define good as in income, maybe it has been in that respect. All right, now, so as we move around here to the conclusion, we need to make sure that we understand who we are. You got to know what you believe and why you believe it. So what are some essentials of the Christian worldview? Let me check out, see what we've got over here. Yeah, we've got some questions. Once again, I almost forgot, but I've got it now. Looking at my producer over here who doesn't see me. I've got it. We're good. She's beloved Summer in the chat has been taking some of your questions and comments, and I'll address those, well, right now. Let's do it right now. Okay, let's first of all, let's move this around here. Let's get back over here to the poll question so we can see how that ended up. And then I'll look at your questions. If you guys have anything you want to ask or bring up for the next few minutes, we'll hang around for a little bit longer and get some of your questions in here. Okay, so the poll question was this: is Britney Spears a good role model for today's culture? 142 votes are in so far. If you'd like to vote, look at the live chat. You can see the link is pinned to the top of the live chat. Thank you, folks, for a good engagement on this during the show today. So is she a good role model? 84% say no. All Hollywood is evil. 3% of you have said, yes, she's a fighter. 13% of you have said, Britney who? Who is Britney? Okay, and the comments, more comments over here. Aileen Hogg says, I vote in Britney who? Because only God knows about her. She deserves our prayers. Thank you, Aileen, for comment and for participating in our poll question today. Joseph Powell once again says, on a large scale, this reminds me of Howard Hughes, how Howard Hughes died. He flew planes, worked for the CIA, bought Las Vegas from the mafia, and at the end of his life, his handlers, apparently the Mormons, let him slowly die by being around a bunch of handlers. Yeah, that's interesting. Dento Bean says, not up to this point. Is Britney Spears a good role model for today's culture? Well, Dento Bean says, no, not up to this point. All right, folks, you want to drop a comment in over there? Go to the poll question. It's pinned to the top of the live chat. And thank you for all your votes and comments today. Let's make sure we got one more. Let's make sure we didn't miss somebody's comment. All right, cool. Now let me look at these questions. We've got a few more minutes. If you want to, what you need to do, if you want to ask a question, you can ask just about anything right now. We'll do a little Q&A here at the end like this. So if you, just about anything, questions in general will be okay right now. I mean, don't get too crazy. You know, Summer is going to be, she'll be vetting. She'll be filtering them. But you'll want to tag Summer in the live chat, or put your question in all caps, something so she can see it, or tag her in the live chat and she'll send that over to me. So far, Kelly Henson has a question. Point blank, is John Hagee a good pastor or a heretic? Never listened to him. Well, he comes from that word of faith type movement. So this is a heretical movement. Well, the idea there is that somehow we are gods. We are little gods. And he falls in with that group. So I couldn't recommend anything he offers. Now, he's also quite outspoken and involved in with political movements. He's, as far as I know, a staunch Christian Zionist. Make of that what you will. So could not recommend him. David Green asks, what race was Jesus? Well, Jesus was a Jewish man. Nicholas Patrick says, I have a question. When I was younger, I saw a horrible, terrifying video that's not available anymore on the internet, and it did affect me. My question is, I do believe in God, but because of what I saw, I cannot put into my mind how God did not do something for those where to tear apart literally by others. Why did he not help them? Just die and bring them with him instead. They suffered for no clear reason at the hands of sick humans. Why would he let this continue? It was horrible to see. So this is a good question. This is dealing with the problem of evil. So the real question here is, how can there be a God if there's evil? Why do people suffer? Well, Scripture gives this answer to us plainly. Christian Worldview answers all of these questions. The answer there is, we are fallen creatures, and we live in a fallen world. The other part of the question is, should we expect God to intervene anytime evil happens or anytime suffering happens? What kind of world would we be in if God intervened every time something bad was about to happen? It brings up the question of free will. Do we have free will to make our choices? I have an answer for that. The way I answer that question is I say, yes, we do have free will, and I don't want anything to do with it, because I know where my free will leads, and it looks like to me, I think I can point out where, when man expresses his free will in the world, where it leads. I want to be in God's will, and I want to pray for God to change me completely over to his will. Now, that said, we always, even as Christians, we always struggle with the flesh. We have three enemies in this world. It's the flesh, and it is the world, and Satan. We have to be aware that it's not just Satan that is our adversary. We have the flesh and the world. 3 distinct enemies. So why does God allow evil? Well, evil is not why does evil exist? Evil isn't a thing that exists as much as it is a privation of that which is good. What God created was good. It's man's free will that creates evil. So I understand that question. I can sympathize with it because I struggled with that one for many years. So I hope that helps out a little bit. Lethe Parrish, is that the last one on the list? Yeah. Lethe Parrish question says, Brad and Day's going to do a show anytime. Let me just make another comment on that question there, Nicholas Petrie. There are videos here on the channel about the problem of evil. The George Floyd video that I did last year is on the problem of evil. If you'd like to check that out, where we go into more detail on why does God allow it. You can there's a playlist on this channel called it's called Apologetics, Making the Case for Christianity, and you can see some videos where we go into much more detail and longer discussion about the problem of evil, because the problem of evil is it's the best objection to the truth claims of Christianity, because it's because we can't answer it completely. We can't tell you exactly why God allows evil, other than to say when we act according to our own free will, evil occurs. And we can see that. Okay, Lethe Parrish asks the question, are Brad and Day's going to do a show anytime soon? Of course, yes. The Virtual Abyss, our podcast, will be back. All right, so if anything else pops up in the next couple minutes over there, if you want to get one in, we can do that. I'll go ahead and share with you what are some of these essentials, Christian worldview, that we need to understand. What makes us Christians? How do we see the world? So when we take on a question like this about with Britney Spears and her worldview, and we're asking these questions, and we're inundated by the New World Order. We're here in it, man. It's not coming. It's here on us. How are we different from the rest of the world? A worldview is just a set of beliefs that is used to understand the world. And everyone has one. Everyone has a set of principles by which they use to judge what is right and wrong. And to judge that which, and something that, worldview is something that guides us every day. You stop at a red light. You go at a green light. Leave a tip with a waiter or waitress. You try and color coordinate your clothes. You cast a vote, perhaps, if you still do that. But why do these things? Because you're accustomed to doing them in a manner that is consistent with what you believe. In other words, you behave according to your worldview, the set of beliefs that give you your being, your understanding. It forms the basis of how you interpret reality. It's a lens for how we look at the world. That's why we talk about the Christian worldview as a lens sometimes. It shapes your moral opinions. This is why we say that if the worldview is atheism, then how could you claim that man is any better than any other animal? Why shouldn't evil exist if it's all random chance acting on matter? A worldview affects what you believe about God. A worldview affects what you believe about marriage and politics, children, society, environment, for example. A worldview affects what you think about education, like educational requirements, economics, what kind of food to eat. A worldview affects how you think about government, global government. It affects everything, because all of that which is around you and all of that with which you interact must be interpreted and must be understood in light of some standard. About half of all adults claim that they make their moral choices based on specific principles or standards in which they believe. Other common means of making moral choices include what feels right? If it feels good, do it. If it feels good to me, then it must be okay with God. Really? Because I'm pretty sure that evil feels good to those who do it. 24% say that doing whatever makes the most people happy or causes the least conflict. You'll hear atheists sometimes say that, how do I know what is moral? Whatever leads to mankind growing. I mean, how is it he said that? The flourishing. Whatever causes mankind to flourish is moral. Well, that argument ends flatly when you think about rape. Rape is immoral, but it certainly causes mankind to it makes more people. And why would, from an atheistic worldview, why would man flourishing be any more desirable than rats flourishing? And about 7% of people claim that their moral choices come from whatever brings me the outcome I'm looking for. Why the difference in these results? It's because people have different worldviews. We've seen that Britney Spears has one, and those people controlling her life have one, and those people who are trying to control our lives certainly operate from one, and we have one, and we better know what it is. This is different opinions about God, man, purpose, life, right and wrong. Some basic philosophical questions that most everyone in the world wonders about. Generally speaking, it's the answers, a worldview answers the following set of questions, and it guides how the questions after that are answered. First, let's look at philosophical worldview questions. Here we go. Here is what you need to know to understand, to interpret your reality. Where did we come from? Why are we here? Let me put this up on the screen for you. Where do we come from? Why are we here? Why does any of this matter? Yeah, I can get this on the screen for you to make it a little bit easier. Once again, Christian Apologetics Research Ministry has many good articles like this to pull from. Here we go. Where did we come from and why are we here? These are the questions that a worldview needs to answer. There we go. That's a little bit bigger. Where do we come from? Why are we here? Is there a God? If there is a God, what does he want? Did we evolve or were we created? Is morality absolute or subjective? That means is what we can know to be good or evil, is that absolute or is it relative from one person to the next? Answering these questions forms the most basic elements of our worldview. Once these are answered, you're better able to form answers to the next set of questions, these that are about to follow, and these are related to society. All right, here they are. Do you think homosexuality is a sin or just an alternative lifestyle? Your worldview will inform that answer. Is abortion wrong or is it a woman's right? Should capital punishment be allowed or abolished? Where should more energy be directed? Protecting the seals and whales or cutting down trees to build homes? Should people be drafted for the military? Would you vote Republican, Democrat, nonpartisan, something else, or not at all? Do you think democracy is better than communism or socialism? Should prostitution be a legitimate business practice? Should we legalize marijuana and other such drugs? Should marriage be defined as occurring between one man and one woman? You behave according to what you believe, not what you don't believe. That would be ridiculous. Matt Slick here writes, he says, I can recall having conversations with atheists who said that they lack a belief in God. They don't believe or disbelieve in God. They just lack a belief. Well, if someone gives you that reason for being an atheist, they've said nothing. To say you lack a belief in something is saying nothing. He says, yet when I defend the Bible as being true or the Christian God as the only God, they are quick to attack my arguments in order to disprove God's existence. So I tell them that they are behaving according to what they believe, not what they don't believe. It's inconsistent to say that you lack a belief in something and then behave as though you deny the existence of that something. Without admitting it, their worldview didn't lack a belief about God. It denies God. It rejects God. Romans chapter 1 tells us this, explains what happens to a person's mind. There's no getting around that. Different worldviews affect behavior, whether or not someone is aware of it. Since I've already mentioned atheism, let's look at that perspective for a moment. Most of Hollywood would fall into this category. How would an atheist answer the philosophical questions that we just looked at? How did we get here? Why are we here? Where are we going? What's the point? An atheist would probably say we evolved from lower primates. Of course, he would deny that God exists, and he would probably say that after we die, we cease to exist. Since there's no absolute God or no absolute morals, morals would not be absolute. Instead, they would be based upon personal preference and whatever works in society. We see that going on around us. That seems to be how our society is set up today. Our morals are based on whatever is expedient for the moment. Our government is making laws based on what feels right for the moment. That's a dangerous way to live. There needs to be a transcendent set of what is right and wrong. And that is to protect us from when we lose our minds. A Christian, on the other hand, would answer the questions differently. A Christian would say that God created us and put us in the world with a purpose. The purpose is to bring glory to God, that creator, and to exercise proper and responsible dominion over creation. As you see, we don't talk against Agenda 21 because we hate the earth. We're commanded to be stewards of the earth. We're given a responsible dominion over the creation. Of course, we understand the agenda for the 21st century is not about saving the earth or humans. It's distinctly opposite from that. A Christian would say that when we die, we either end up in heaven or hell. Of course, a Christian would deny that we arrived here via evolution and would also deny that morals are subjective. More specifically, in evolution, we would point out to an atheistic materialist definition of evolution. Of course, evolution occurs in the sense that animals do adapt. We just don't see animals changing kinds. We don't see horses becoming snakes or the other way around. So what are the elements of this Christian worldview? Christianity teaches a set of beliefs that form the basics of our worldview. Following now is a list of elements that make up Christian worldview. Let's take a look at this list. Keep these things in mind. Take notes so when people ask you this on the bus, when you're waiting in line for your milkshake, whatever, keep these things ready on you. An absolute God does exist. If an absolute God exists, then that means that God is self-sufficient and lacks nothing. Not created, uncreated, eternally existent. No beginning, no end. That's what Alpha and Omega means. If God is self-sufficient, then he needs no external cause for his existence. This would mean that he is eternal. If he is eternal, then he does not change. Another element of the Christian worldview is that this being, this personal God, created the universe. If God created the universe, then he is all-powerful, omnipotent. Since it obviously takes a great deal of power to create the universe, necessarily he's omnipotent. This would also mean that God is separate from creation and not part of the created order, transcendent. God is spirit, must be worshipped in spirit and truth. From the previous point where we see that God is absolute and unchanging, we could see that God's nature would be reflected in the created order. As a painter leaves a part of himself on the canvas, As such, God reveals himself in his creation. Creation is therefore ordered, predictable, and dependable. Now, the only way you can know for sure that what's going to happen tomorrow is what happened in the past is there is a God sustaining it all. This would mean that when Christians look into creation, they would expect to find a predictable, regular, and testable world. God, as defined in Scripture, is exactly what one would expect, given what we know from science, even. Next, essential elements of Christian worldview. Man is created in God's image. Now, this means that God, who is rational and intelligent, has impressed his image upon the hearts and souls of human beings. It doesn't mean that we look like God. That's not what it means. It means we are image bearers. Therefore, people can be rational and turn their attention toward the world, and since they believe that the universe reflects God's creative nature, they can have the confidence to look into creation and expect order. We can reason, rationalize. We can contemplate our existence. No other creatures do that. We're in God's image. You can also expect that since we're made in the image of God, that we'll have the ability to unlock the secrets of the universe. We have a desire to seek truth. I don't think bears do that. Or fish, or whatever. Or monkeys, primates, or any kind of gorilla or chimpanzee. I don't think they seek to unlock the secrets of the universe, or necessarily pay attention to what is good or evil, moral or immoral. Also, if man is created in God's image, then all people are worthy of respect and honor. Now this is one of the greatest truths, because we see this sorely lacking in our society today. People are looking, they want respect and want to be, the social justice movement is about that. I want you to affirm me. Your churches today, we are an affirming church. What that essentially means is they're affirming that anyone who, what they're essentially affirming is that you don't have to repent to be a Christian. They're talking about the gay affirming churches. You don't have to repent. You don't have to change your life. So, if man is created in God's image, then all people are worthy of respect and honor. So in Christianity, we are equal. This should also mean that when a new life is formed in the womb, it is human from the time of conception. Scientists will always tell you, yes, of course, life happens at conception in all animals, and that includes humans. It's only in the abortion debate where the confusion comes in. It's only in the abortion debate that anyone's ever argued that maybe it's not human until a certain point. Therefore, of course, obviously abortion would be wrong. Furthermore, if we are created in God's image, then we did not evolve from lower primates. This would mean that we have a purpose and are not merely the result of a random development through evolution, that is, supposedly guided by natural selection. Natural selection works on the theory of survival of the fittest, and this could have a very harmful effect on society if you just think about that. If survival of the fittest is transferred into a moral principle, that would justify eugenics. If survival of the fittest, in other words, if you have a global world order, for example, that believes that only certain groups should survive, as we kind of see happening right now, then that would justify oppression. That would justify oppression of those who don't agree. All right, next, man was given dominion over creation by God. This means that all aspects of the created order on earth are to be governed by man, according to how God has revealed himself and his will for us in the Bible. Therefore, politics, medicine, art, ecology, society, economics, exploration, philosophy, mathematics, education, etc., all fall under the domain of human responsibility and should be considered realms for man to control. under the wisdom and direction of God's revelation, of course. Now, another element of the Christian worldview that is crucial, it's essential, we are fallen. The fall of mankind, which happened through our ancient father Adam, tells us that at the heart of everyone is a predisposition towards sin. We have a sin nature. Sin is rebellion against God, and therefore it is a rebellion against what is good. That, to answer the question earlier, that is why evil exists, because of rebellion. Sin has not only affected man's soul and body, but it has also affected his mind, Romans chapter 1, a debased mind. Therefore, the Christian worldview would say that even man's best reasoning is touched by sin and cannot be perfect. We talked about this the other day in that walkabout where the question came up is, what will it be like? Will we have free will in the new heaven and new earth? In heaven, will you have free will? Let's talk more specifically at the eternal destination, in glorified bodies. Will we have free will? Well, think of being a fallen creature in a fallen creation. Our minds are fallen. We're given to sin in that way too. So with a glorified existence, a glorified mind, there would be no need for sin. Your will would be in accordance with God's will. Also, since man is sinful and his heart's intentions are predisposed toward wickedness, we conclude that those in power are highly susceptible to corruption. Therefore, governmental systems should be developed with Christian principles in mind to help guard against that. Don't want a theocracy. Christians are not calling, biblical Christians are not calling for any kind of a theocracy, but certainly we want Christians as leaders. We need that. In fact, Christianity influenced the development of the freedoms that we enjoy. Now, Jesus, next essential Christian worldview is Jesus is mankind's only hope for redemption. It's because we're fallen. We are in need of rescue from God's righteous condemnation, which is eternal separation from God. That is damnation. Since he is fallen, since mankind is fallen, there's no way we can redeem ourselves. Therefore, Jesus, who is God in the flesh, died for us, rose from the dead. And because of this, we receive his righteousness and forgiveness by faith. The basic theological truth means that Christians should then tell it, preach about it, tell your friends, tell everyone you meet about the good news of redemption in Christ to all the world. So one of the most basic Christian principles is promoting Jesus as the means by which we are made right with God. Your testimony is a good witness. Christian worldview essential. The Bible is the Word of God. It is the inspired and inerrant Word of God. From the Bible, we derive the truths by which we govern our lives. It is from the Bible that we learn about God himself, his created order, his nature, the Trinity, redemption, sin, salvation, hope, and what is morally correct. The Bible reveals the will of God for mankind, for the family, for raising children, for proper behavior in society, etc., etc. It is from the Bible, from God's written and revealed word, that we can learn his direct will. And finally, God provides for his creation. Essential Christian worldview, we know that God provides. It's from the Bible that we learn of God's loving provision for us. We know that God lets the sun and rain fall upon both the good and the bad. There's something called common grace. Everyone gets to experience the beauty of a sunrise that God has created. But not all will experience his mercy. We know that God causes the crops to grow and the cattle to multiply. We know that though we live in a fallen world, God has promised that he will never leave or forsake us. And so we can rely on his provision for us and should have confidence that he will continue to provide for our needs. So you can see there are basic principles that form the Christian worldview. There are a lot more than these, but these 8 items are essentially representative of Christianity's perspective and truth and how it influences belief and action and how we can reform the culture if we just if we start with ourselves. If we start with our personal relationship with Jesus and then our family. Take care. Get your house in order first. Right? We don't need to be worried. We ought not be so worried about changing the government when our own hearts need changing. Secular conservatism is like a Band-Aid. You need a Christian worldview if we're going to reform anything worth having. It's not about revolution. It's about reformation. All right, folks. Let's see. All right, we didn't get any more. My producer, anyway, hasn't given me any more questions that came in, but there we go. We've got some of these super chats. Thank you, Nicholas, for that Canadian money. Canadian monies. All right, thanks for that. It says, thanks for being a man of love and hope. I saw it first time I came here. Thanks. I appreciate that, Nicholas. That's really, really nice to hear. I appreciate it. Sonny James says, it's crazy to me how so-called progressives believe in destruction of the nuclear family, which is slavery. I've pleaded with transhumanists on how would they protect privacy. They have no response. Crickets in response. Sonny James says, slavery for thee, not for me. Another one from Sonny James. Thank you very much. Says, no such thing as Gnosticism. We see atheism developing into the religion of Kabbalah. Rituals include, if I can't really say too much about these, but, include standing 6 feet apart, things like that. And humans as something that needs a collective direction. It's good points. Thanks. I appreciate that, folks, for your support. If you guys want to support us, there are a few ways you can do that. There are links in the description. Help us out with that. There's a PayPal link, which is the easiest. It's the easiest way to go about it. You can support us on Patreon as well. Every couple of weeks we get something new up there for you to look at, something that we can't talk about over here. But listen, let's be clear about this. Patreon really has to be a short-term solution because we're going to be run off these platforms, it's for sure. And so that's why I wanted to remind you that tomorrow we're going to be going we're going to be running an experiment, going live on our website tomorrow. And so we will invite you over there. I'll put out a community post here on YouTube. We'll put it out on Twitter and on Facebook. So join us over on Facebook at Armor of Truth Ministry, on Twitter at AoT_ministry, or you can search Brad from Carolina or Armor of Truth Ministry. You'll find us over there on Twitter. Instagram, Brad from Carolina on Instagram. Also, there's Armor of Truth Ministry. Instagram will give you, we'll let you know what time to find us. So it'll be 6 p.m. We'll be going live at 6 p.m. again tomorrow over there. We'll keep that time. And we'll be uncensored. We've got our topics, we've got our outline ready, and we just need a place where we can speak freely. So I hope you'll join us for that. And we'll start building our presence over there, but we'll always be here as much as we can. And we'll deal with these topics and issues and trying to do this work over here where, because YouTube, and that's where the people are. We have to, it's like the city. We have to go into the city to reach the people. So we'll have to have a special place where we meet and speak freely. Thank you, Bacon Toast. Yeah, we're on Instagram. We're in a lot of places. In the description of this video, you'll find at the very top, we have one of those Linktree links where you can find all the places where you can find us. All right, so Lord willing, we'll do that tomorrow, and we'll direct you over there. And then Thursday we'll be back for, I think it's part 5 of our Who is Jesus series. We still have to deal a little bit with the Jesus mythicism. Adam Green did some videos recently. He's done quite a few on the fact that Jesus is obviously a myth. It's one of the easiest claims to refute, for sure. And his one of his scholars that he has appealed to is Dr. David Skirbina. We'll deal with that. We'll deal with where is Skirbina coming from? What's his perspective? What's his worldview? Right? What is Adam's worldview? Right? What are you living for? You ever get to into a situation with someone and you're discussing these things, or you're trying to share the gospel with them, or just they're asking questions about God, and they just keep asking questions. You'll answer the question, and they'll ask another, and you'll answer, and they're not really looking. You can tell they're not really looking for the answer. You can just ask them, what are you living for? Tell me what it is that you're living for. And that usually helps someone to think about the point, which is, why are we here? What am I doing? And you get people to think that way. What am I living for? What is my purpose here? Oh, well, I'm here to support my family. I'm here to put food on the table, or I'm here, whatever. I'm here to have as much fun as I can. Have as much sex and make as much money as I can. That's what I'm living for. You get people to think like that, and you get people to say things out loud. Then you've dropped a pebble in their shoe. They'll go away thinking about that, because on the other hand, in this world today, people will tell you, we're just all basically good. But when you challenge people in their worldview, you find out it's not so. All right, folks, we've been on here way longer than I expected today. I appreciate you hanging out and being patient with this whole thing as we dealt with the Britney Spears issue. Since it's in the news, I thought it'd be relevant to bring it up. We're cultural apologists here. That's what term that Dunphy used the other day that I like pretty well. Cultural apologetics. We're dealing with bringing the gospel, defending the name of Jesus Christ in a world that has rejected him, in a world that has dragged his name through the mud for about 2,000 years now. And this is a calling that we have. We are, once again, a ministry existing here in Western North Carolina known as Armor of Truth. You can find us at armoroftruth.net. You can send us a message, write us a letter, send us a card. There's some back here behind me. I'd love to get those. Send those to P.O. Box, Armor of Truth, P.O. Box 729, Hudson, North Carolina, 28638. Yeah, let me just pull it up here for you so you can see. It would be responsible, wouldn't it? Okay. There we go. So you can send us a letter right here. Armor of Truth Ministry, P.O. Box 729, Hudson, NC. Send us a letter. You can send in support that way, too, if you like. If you want to, you can send a check or some kind of device in, and you can make it out to Armor of Truth. Armor of Truth Ministry, either way will be fine. And we can receive your support that way now. Armor of Truth, P.O. Box 729, Hudson, NC 28638. Let me give you the Bible, the way to get. Okay, here's how you get the. That's the wrong one. If you'd like to have a free Bible with a set, starter pack of tracts, just email us at armoroftruth@protonmail.com. In the subject line, just put "I want a Bible" and make sure you give us your mailing address. And if you do that, please be patient. You know, there's just now 2 of us here working and doing this together. And I'll tell you, it's a lot of work. It's nonstop. So you can email us at armoroftruth@protonmail.com, and you can request a free Bible and some tracts. Okay, my friends, that'll do it for today. God willing, we'll see you next time. Tomorrow on the website. Thursday, we'll be right back here. On the website, we're building toward something that I'm excited to talk about, but can't yet because, it's have to wait till it's built. If you build it, they will come, I heard. So thanks to lovely Summer for being in the chat with you guys and for keeping up with all these links. She deserves credit because she does a lot of work behind the scenes that you guys don't see. Well, you actually do see a lot of her work. It shows up on the screen there. But just give a thanks to Summer out there if you would. And let's, of course, God bless John Wayne. It's good to see John Wayne out there. Bacon Toast, Aileen Hogg, Susie Q is with us. Sonny James, thank you for your support today. Nicholas and Sonny, and Joseph, Melissa Benitez is here. Crystal, going. CJM, good to see you. Thanks for being here. Yeah, CJM says you're going to watch the replay. Yeah, this has been like two different shows. At the beginning, we dealt with the Britney Spears issue, and we're talking about, hey, are we in a conservatorship too, like her? It's interesting to think of it that way. Miss Bahar Haddari, thanks for being here. Of course, Kelly Henson. Kelly, if you're asking about what time the stream tomorrow, 6 o'clock, 6 p.m. Live and uncensored. Here's a question. Nicholas Bowles says, what's the line between exposing darkness and the shamefulness of even speaking of it? It's a very good question. It's dealing with the culture. You have to be careful. Like, for instance, when we were talking about Kabbalah earlier, where's the line between exposing it and just promoting it? Well, there are some people out there who are going to take that as a promotion. I don't know. When it has to do with dealing with Kabbalah that way, for example, we're doing that to show that, look, this lines up exactly with the New Age doctrine. It's not New Age, but it's just like the New Age doctrine. So showing the teachings of Kabbalah, that's one reason. But the line between exposing darkness and the shamefulness of even speaking it, yeah, there's a line there, and you have to be careful about it. That's a good question. MJ with us today. Thanks to Ms. O for being out there, and Nana P, our moderators. Bacon Toast always makes me hungry. Advanced Insight says, only just got in, so not sure what's the topic. I'm aware of what's going on with Britney and feel it has to do with the narc epidemic the Lord warns would be on the earth in this time. Thanks for being here. Advanced Insight. Yeah, check the beginning of this, the first half of this video. A little more on that. Yes, Nick Bowles, thanks for your questions. JP, Joseph Powell. Okay. Thanks, folks, for being here with us today. That'll do it for now. We'll see you again live tomorrow if you join us on the website. See you there.
We are bored. We're all bored now. But has it ever occurred to you, Wally, that the process that creates this boredom that we see in the world now may...
This is the clip from My Dinner with Andre, 1981 movie. Very interesting conversation these two guys are having in a movie from 1981. We'll see you next time.
Very well be a self-perpetuating, unconscious form of brainwashing created by a world totalitarian government based on money, and that all of this is much more dangerous than one thinks. And it's not just a question of individual survival, Wally, but that somebody who's bored is asleep, and somebody who's asleep will not say no. See, I keep meeting these people. I mean, just a few days ago, I met this man whom I greatly admire, and he told me that he no longer watches television, he doesn't read newspapers, and he doesn't read magazines. He's completely cut them out of his life because he really does feel that we're living in some kind of Orwellian nightmare now, and that everything that you hear now contributes to turning you into a robot. He said to me, "Where are you from?" And I said, "New York." He said, "New York, yes, that's a very interesting place. Do you know a lot of New Yorkers who keep talking about the fact that they want to leave but never do?" And I said, "Oh, yes." And he said, "Why do you think they don't leave?" He said, "I think that New York is the new model where the camp has been built by the inmates themselves, and the inmates are the guards, and they have this pride in this thing they've built. They've built their own prison, and so they exist in a state of schizophrenia where they are both guards and prisoners, and as a result, they no longer have the capacity to leave the prison they've made or to even see it as a prison." And he said, "Escape before it's too late." See, actually, for 2 or 3 years now, I've had this very unpleasant feeling that we really should get out. Of course, the problem is where to go, because it seems quite obvious that the whole world is going in the same direction. From now on, there'll simply be all these robots walking around, feeling nothing, thinking nothing. And there'll be nobody left almost to remind them that there once was a species called a human being, with feelings and thoughts, and that history and memory are right now being erased, and soon nobody will really remember that life existed on the planet.
Armor of Truth.
In the age of technocracy, scientism, and pop atheism,
Faith is resistance.
Nietzsche, of course, announced the death of God and called for the birth of the Übermensch, the Superman, who would take humanity to new heights and to create a new world order.
Find us at the Brad from Carolina YouTube channel and log on armoroftruth.net.
We're bored.